The Olympics. Everyone's favorite time to sneakily watch TV all day when they're supposed to be at work. Now, if you had to create a new sport for the Olympics, what would you pick? Would it be breakdancing? What about a 700th swimming event with some minute variation to let Michael Phelps win even more medals? Or would you come up with something so unbelievably ridiculous that no one would take you seriously? Well, I have some good news for you today. Pretty much any possible silly event has already been tried, and a good number of them come from Paris 1900. Admittedly, most of them didn't last long, but they did happen, so you're going to hear about my favorites. Backstory time. Okay, so everyone knows about the Olympics. Big tournament, lots of sports, started in Greece, blah blah blah. But most people forget that the Olympics were only revived in their modern form in 1896. It all started in 1884 when Baron Pierre de Coubertin, the Secretary General of the Union of the French Sports Associations, drafted a letter titled Reflections on and Propagation of the Principles of Amateurism. Now, that's a pretty boring name, and I probably wouldn't want to go to that meeting, which Mr. de Coubertin evidently agreed with, as he eventually updated the meeting name to Congress on the Revival of the Olympic Games. Also, this mustache drawing is under-exaggerated. Look at this Chad. Thus, on June 16th, 1894, 78 delegates descended on Paris. 58 from France and 20 others from Belgium, Great Britain, Greece, Italy, Russia, Spain, Sweden, and the United States. This was the first Olympic Congress. It was pretty French heavy, but hey, what do you expect? It was kind of hard to travel in 1894. This week-long event culminated with a resolution to revive the Olympic Games and led to the creation of the International Olympic Committee. The IOC is sort of a beast within itself with many fun tales of corruption and mishaps, but I don't want to get too off topic. The group also discussed amateurism and established key criteria for participation. At the time, this was a key Olympic aspect, although that seems to have kind of gotten lost in recent years with the increasing professionalization of sport. One point generated from their 14-point declaration really stands out here, point 9, that, except in the case of fencing, only amateurs would be allowed to compete. Now, the justification here was that fencing was historically rooted in military training and professional academies, and therefore being a professional was seen as noble rather than uncouth, so professional categories were allowed. For me, though, this is a good idea for other reasons. I don't really want people getting accidentally poked in the eye. So, Athens 1896 would be where we start off, right? The first Olympics surely had some good, exciting, unique events, right? Alas, it was not to be. Basically, every event was normal. So boring. The most unique event was probably the 25-meter rapid-fire pistol, which was won by Yanninas Frangoudis. And I bet you can't guess what country he was from. Now that you know the general idea, though, we can get into the fun stuff. And so we end up back where it began, Paris 1900. And here, my friends, is where things start to get wacky. This time, rather than being a standalone event, the Olympics were part of the World Fair. That sounds good, right? More money, more eyes, more fun. Wrong. These games sucked. Historians refer to them these days, and the 1904 games in Missouri. Why the heck would you have the Olympics in Missouri? As the farcical games. Not a very nice name. Still, many events took place, and there's some controversy over which events were just part of the fair and which ones were actually part of the Olympics. Reports note that many athletes, including some of the winners, didn't even know they were part of the Olympics until years after their competitions were completed. In fact, the IOC also never really explained which events were Olympic, leaving it up to the fair organizers, who weren't even particularly happy that these events were taking place. So we have a little bit of leeway here. There were also women there this time. Yay! Okay, you are now, more or less, an expert on the early Olympics. Time to learn about some cool events. Number 1, ballooning. What could be more Paris than hot air balloons? Competitions included distance, duration, elevation, weather sounding, and photography from a balloon. In the spirit of the modern Olympics, we'll just focus on distance and completely ignore the noble pursuits of weather sounding and photography from a balloon. Also, distance was purportedly the most exciting event for the fans. Here, competitors competed to go the farthest in a hot air balloon. Now, how far do you think you can go in a balloon? Maybe 5 kilometers, or 10, or even 20? Well, you are extremely wrong. The first time they tried, the winds were so strong that the competitors barely made it off the fairgrounds. But rather than calling it a day, they decided to reschedule for nearly a month later, and this time, boy, did they go far. The winner of the second race finished his flight in Vlaslavik, just west of Warsaw, although that was still part of Russia at the time. And then he was celebrated upon landing, right? Wrong again. He was immediately arrested by Russian officials for not having filed a passport request prior to his journey. In the final distance iteration, the same guy beat his own record and went 1,237 kilometers, landing in Kiev, and once again having passport issues. It took nearly 36 hours for him to get there, and he was once again in legal trouble. Overall, as exciting as this event sounds, it would have been impossible to watch. How are you going to see a balloon that's 1,200 kilometers away? And it created a bureaucratic mess for its victor. So it's probably not shocking this is the only time ballooning was featured in the Olympics. Okay, number two, angling. Yes, that does mean fishing. You're right. Wow, you say, but Dino, fishing sounds like a completely normal event. Why would you include that? Well, we need to use some context clues for this one to really get to the issues here, but I promise it's pretty funny. Firstly, they held the competition in the River Seine, a notably, even at this time, polluted river with very few fish. Accounts from this time refer to the Seine as ruined, with few fish, and all fish were quite small. Further, the arm of the river they used for the competition is known for poor oxygenation in the summer, and therefore had even less fish. To make the whole thing even worse, a week before the event, a sewer spill killed 30 tons. Yes, tons of fish. To make the whole thing more interesting, there were 600 participants divided into 100-person heats. In the first heat, designated for foreigners, 17 fish were caught. That's not very many fish. It did get better with local fishermen racking up 641 total fish in the final heat, but overall the heats were pretty much a disaster. The final was also better with participants averaging 16 small fish per person. But here's the real kicker. The way they set up admissions meant it was easy to watch from afar, and on day one, over 6,000 spectators did just that, meaning that admissions only brought in 46 francs. After that, they decided to make admission free the rest of the way, but they spent 5,600 francs on prize money alone, so they lost a bunch of money. The event was a failure, but it certainly wasn't wild as some of the other ones. Number three, live pigeon shooting. Who the heck came up with this one? I don't even need to say anything. That's a blasphemous event without any context needed. What would PETA say? Probably not anything nice. Number four, croquet. Yeah, that croquet. France cleaned this event up, winning all the medals across all the categories. Of course, only French people competed, but still, very impressive. Can this exciting event top our 46 francs earned from the angling admission? Well, probably not. Only one spectator is recorded having attended, and based off the croquet I've watched, he probably did not go home happy. Number five, swimming. I know I suggested we could add more swimming events, but I didn't really mean it. However, these guys had a great idea. You know the show Wipeout, or those fun little slip and slide structures they have for kids at some lakes or pools now? Yep, swimming obstacle course time. 200-meter obstacle course to be exact. Swimmers had to swim 200 meters while getting around three obstacles. This included climbing over a pole, climbing over a row of boats, and then swimming under another row of boats. The eventual winner, Frederick Lane from Australia, swam a 3:04 in his heat and followed it up with a 2:38.4 in the final to knock off Austrian Otto Wall, who finished in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, the actual 200-meter freestyle record hadn't yet been established, but when it did 2 years later, it was set at 2 minutes and 28.6 seconds. That means that these guys were able to get over and under the obstacles in a mere 10 seconds, which actually does seem pretty impressive. Now, who do you think set that record? I'll give you a hint. You already know their name. Yep, it was Frederick Lane, who might be my new favorite athlete. There was also underwater swimming at these Olympics, the one you did as a kid where you just jumped in and tried to go as far as you could without coming up for air. So that one was a bit silly too, but not quite in my top five. Now that you know all that, I ask you again. If you had to create a new Olympic event, could you top these ones? This was a quick history lesson and a focus on Paris 1900. But there were a lot more Olympics since then, some better organized, some not, but lots of other interesting history for us to go over. So let me know what you think. Comment if you'd like to learn more about other fun Olympic events that have been tried in the past. This was History with Dino, and I will see you soon.